Well, hello and welcome. This evening we are looking at, obviously, tomorrow the finance minister is going to go to Parliament to read out the budget. And so, obviously, what we are doing today is we're just looking at the previous budgets. Basically, a budget is an estimate you project to the government to say, by so and so date, I will achieve X amount or Y amount, or I will do this or I will do that. So we're just going to look at the things that were promised in the 2015 budget. Indeed, in 2015, the finance minister had to go into Parliament 2 times to say, well, what I told you the other time, forget it. I can't do it because prices have gone down or production has gone down. So let's revise it. And so he revised it twice. But what is he going to do? Some experts in the economic world are saying that, listen, there's nothing good that's going to come out of this because we have performed really, really badly in the previous budget. How are you going to catch up your previous budget, let alone project new ones? I am sure if I went into the NDC quarters, they would say, something, this is the best budget ever. Indeed, the previous ones were called transformational. But then you can argue, because transformation, you can transform into anything, transform big or transform small. It was called transformational. We all assume from the layman point of view that if it's going to be transformational, it has to make our lives better. Inflation is up. Fuel prices internationally are down. We are still struggling. Energy is abysmal. There's a ship floating about in the ocean somewhere. If it comes, maybe you and I shall have life. So we have all these things going on. And the real sufferer is the economy, because the cost to probably make a pillow or cost to make a spoon here is probably the same as the cost to make a Porsche somewhere in the modern world. And yet still, we need to compete in this global world. What is the finance minister going to deliver to us tomorrow? And should we have any hope? As we say, we should all be optimists. My economics degree is from Edumasa. It doesn't go further. So I've gotten a gentleman whose economics degree actually goes worldwide, further than Edumasa. So I have with me in studio Dr. Lord Mensah, who is a finance lecturer, University of Ghana. Doctor, you're welcome.
Thank you.
And then later on in the show, we'll have Eric Osai Sibe, economist, University of Ghana, also joining. And then we have Professor Korte, Institute of Statistical and Socioeconomic Research, also joining us. So we have a few gurus, all throwing their ideas in the mix to see what to expect tomorrow. I'm going to take a break. When I come back, conversation begins. My name is Nanan Sakwa, and this is PM Express. Well, thank you very much for staying. That's a quick one. And we are looking at achieving the 2015 macroeconomic targets, and then looking forward. Doc, preliminary comments tomorrow. I mean, what is there to expect? Big English, or some real things that have happened that are going to blow our minds?
Well, tomorrow we shouldn't expect much to happen anyway, because if you look at what has happened for the past few days as the revision of the budget went by, I mean, I would say as a country, our hands are tied, because if you look at a situation where you can create deficit, huge deficit here, budget deficit, because if you create huge budget deficit, in the end, how are you going to finance it? Now, financing, you're looking at external financing. Possibly you're looking at internal financing. Now, with internal, Ghanaians are struggling, as with your introduction, It's not possible, or it will be difficult to raise money here to finance your budget deficit. Now, if you go to the external market, now, if you look at our Eurobond, where the interest rate, as expected, 10.75,
that's high.
It's going to be difficult. I mean, we're not coming below that if we go next time to the market. So I see tomorrow not to be a budget which is going to be vibrant in terms of expanding the expenditure side of the budget. But then I see it to be a budget where we're going to have fixed kind of expenditure, where the finance minister will say, in the end this year, we're going to squeeze our expenditure, and we try to cut cost in which direction. But then it's going to be difficult if you look at the year that we're going to find ourselves in. It's an election year, and we have that cycle of election year where we spend more. So it's really going to be difficult. It's a difficult task, but we shouldn't expect anything much different from squeezing of our expenditure. The little revenue that will be generated, we use to finance the expenditure.
I'll come back to squeezing of expenditure, because you can squeeze it either way. Are we going to squeeze it on the luxuries? And the luxuries are those at the top. Or are we going to squeeze those at the bottom? Because those at the bottom, indeed, to squeeze them is literally take from them. You can either, reduce the luxuries at the top or take the little from the bottom. So we'll see how it will happen. But this is Section 3, Revised 2015 Macroeconomic Targets, Fiscal Framework and Supplementary Budget, and Mid-Year Review and Supplementary Estimate. But this is a speech. Let's read a couple of paragraphs so to bring us to post. It says, Mr. Speaker, development in both the domestic and global economic environment have necessitated a revision of the macroeconomic framework and targets in the 2015 budget. While the situation has started to improve, the recent exchange rate depreciation due to high outflows of foreign exchange and the rising inflation posed downside risk to the achievement of the growth target for the year. This situation is certain to improve. Revision certain to improve, so let's bear that in mind. Revision to the fiscal framework. Based on the revision to the macroeconomic framework, the 2015 macroeconomic targets have been revised as follows. Overall real GDP growth revised from 3.9% to 3.5%. It's transformation. Non-oil real GDP growth revised from 2.7% to 2.3%. End year inflation revised from 11.5% to 13.7%. And overall budget deficit target, which is the main one that everybody's worried about here. Overall budget deficit target revised from 6.5% of GDP to 7.3%. And gross international reserves is projected to remain at not less than 3 months of import cover and goods service. Mr. Speaker, as a result of the revision made to the macroeconomic framework and fiscal performance for the first 5 months of the year, the 2015 revenue expenditure estimates have been revised. Doc, are these figures going to get any worse, or?
Well, these are figures that we see some of them going beyond the target, as we see. Now, if you look at inflation, it was revised from 11%, 11.5% to 13.7%. And now inflation is about 17.4%. Wow. So that is way above what was projected. So for me, some of them are achievable, others are not. But then as you can see on the ground, we have some of them going way beyond. And you look at interest rates on the market as well. It's completely different from what we saw from the revised version. Mm-hmm. So it's hard times. It's really hard times for this country, as I will put it. Because if you go on the market now, it's difficult to raise funds because there's no money in the system. And if the government is going forward to, no, fine, they're doing well if you look at what is in the budget, where they're focusing on financing deficit externally. Then external financing also comes with a cost, where you bear interest rate cost, and then you look at our CD, which is depreciating,
But at least it frees money for you and I.
Exactly. It frees money. It's a free money for all of us. But in the end, let's put it this way: we have a situation where I would say we shouldn't expect anything from the budget, this current budget, because the target that was, the parameters that was set, we were not able to hit it, and in the end, calling for revision, expanding your expenditure, and then also increasing your finding a way of increasing your revenue is a problem. and how do we increase revenues in this country. It's a way of, you know, increasing taxes, and then already our export base is dwindling if you look at the trends over the years, you know. So then the tax is going to be on ordinary man, and we live in a country where the few that are captured in the tax net are the ones that are being overburdened every now and then. We have not seen a budget that would say, hey, this allocation is going into a system where we can use to mobilize funds within the country, try to capture a huge chunk of the informal sector that is sitting somewhere that are not captured in the tax net. So I don't expect much, and in as much as I don't expect much, I would say the targets that were put in place in the last budget, most of them has not been achieved.
You think like a real populist budget, if I may say, would work? Say, look, this is it, and we are really slashing the luxury from here, from there, from there. One thing that I always say is that, you see, when the state or even any institution gives you a free car, the car element is free, but the tax,
the recurrent cost that comes with it,
yeah, you
it's
pay.
not supposed to be free.
It's not supposed to be free. Yeah. But here, when they say it's free, it's truly free.
Sure.
I mean, would something like that ginger confidence? I don't know. I mean,
well, if you look at cutting down of cost, you know, it comes into play, the luxuries that we enjoy, you know. If cutting down luxury in the political circles as we speak now is going to be difficult, because otherwise motivation will not be there for people to go into politics, you know. And I would say that before we cut that, we talk about luxuries, and then those who occupy, you know, those top positions in terms, we should look at our political financing. It's a key area this country needs to look at, because no money goes free. You know, if you put in, you want to recoup. And the luxury that he's living in does not mean that he's not, you know, he's not spend anything to come into politics. If you look at the history of this country, if you are not rich, you can't be a politician. You understand? So the politicians incur a lot, and when they come to power, that's the time to recoup. And recouping means that, you know, that's when they enjoy all those flashy things that you see around, and that is where we want to hold them accountable. But in the end, most of them has lost, you know, chunk of monies into their politics, which we've not assessed.
There are certain things which we can't do anything about, i.e. we are not producing as much oil, and the little that we are producing is literally half the price that we thought you know, it was going to be. You know, as a nation, what then do you do? Do you put your eggs in a different basket, or what then happens there?
Well, as a nation, when the oil started coming in place, that's when we saw our agriculture sector started going down. All the hopes were banked in the oil sector. But this is a market which is, if you look at the most risky investment in the world, is the mining sector, investment into the oil sector. It's a very risky investment. That's why the returns are enormous, you know. So if you bank your hope on the oil exploration, and in the end, it has become a failure on the market, because if you look at prices of oil now, you know, it's more or less half, as you said earlier, you know, it's more or less half. And this is a country where our revenues are generated from this. If you look, you compare a non-oil sector GDP with a combined GDP, you saw that the oil has a huge impact on our GDP. So it's a big blow to us as a country. And that is why I said that for this budget, you know, if you look at the commodity market outlook, it's not good for us. And so I don't expect the finance minister to come into a budget where I would say I'm going to put this in place, I'm going to set up this, I'm going to do that. That will come with a cost expenditure. I expect a moderate spending in this budget.
I mean, last year's budget, and this is a very unfair question for you, but I'll give it to you. Last year's budget was a transformational one.
Yes.
I mean, what if you were the finance minister, what would you title this budget?
Well,
what would be a fair name for it?
If you say transformational can be in either direction. You know, it can be in a negative direction, it can be in a positive direction. But then he did not specify the direction that the budget was going. So in the end, if it's transformational, maybe we've transformed, but then in a negative direction, you know, as people are feeling it in the streets, you know. So
elections are coming. I mean, it's just down the corner. roads have to be built.
Yes.
Indeed, this afternoon I was jumping up and down because my roads to my village is absolutely atrocious. I mean, I shouted so much that my DC had to ring into the show and try to explain why I can't drive to my home. And that road has to be fixed, otherwise I'm not going to accept it. And I'm just one. I'm sure there are hundreds of towns who are saying, well, if you want to campaign in this town, you bring us our electricity or our water or school. So what then happens? Say, well,
cutting down spending does not necessarily mean that you're not going to attend to those basic needs that you're supposed to supply to the people. Now, what's happening is that you are tight. It's okay, you are constrained. So all that you need is efficient allocation. Now, efficient allocation does not necessarily mean that you're going to ignore some sectors completely. But then the weight that you're going to place on those sectors is going to be minimal. So that is how I say. So if I'm saying that the government should cut down spending, no, let's look at it this way. In the end, cut down spending, but then labor is agitating for high wages. You know, what are you going to do? You see? And it's an election year, okay? So you should set your priority right as a manager of an economy or a corporate entity. I will call Ghana a corporate Ghana. So as a manager of a corporate Ghana, you should know the mix, okay, in terms of your allocation, in terms of weightings that you're going to do to move the country forward.
Why aren't we creating enough jobs? Because I say that because there's so much infrastructure we're going on. Hospitals, and if I was to call, NDC, the phone guys, the serial caller right now, they would give me a list for the next 30 minutes. Things,
serious projects that are ongoing.
Roads, this, that. So then why are we crying for jobs? Who is doing all those things?
Let's put it this way. If you look at job creation, I always say in my class, my students, that sometimes we ignore some aspect of jobs. Now, gone are the days in Europe when I used to do my PhD. You're going to have a situation where you just go and enter data. Okay, we're struggling with data. If you look at the country, it's a huge job market in this country. But then, how many graduates are out there doing this job? People are in the universities. They can do this as part-time. Where field data will be collected. Their job is to just enter the data. We don't have those basics jobs. We're looking at jobs where the government has created, jobs where it's already in place, absorbing the masses. But there are some basic jobs. Those who have experience out there, they can tell you, even cleaning on the street, just short distance for 3 hours, it's a full-time job for somebody, So for me, and then let's come to where those projects going on. Let's not forget about technology. Technology has laid out handiworks, It has taken over manpower, So if you go and sign a contract which says that, fine, in the contract it has been indicated that a fraction of the workforce should come from my side, and then the machinery should come from this side. Then you don't need those who are going to lift the heavy-duty metals on the street. The machines can do it. So it's something that 10 people are supposed to do. The machine can just pick it like that. So technology is more or less taking over jobs. That is one side of it that as we speak now. Now, apart from that, now we have those infrastructures created. But then the question is, are they built to suit the budget that was allocated for it? Okay. Now, if you're doing a project that is supposed to take about maybe 50 people, and because of kickbacks and other things that goes on, you end up having a small budget for the project. How many people can you keep on board with the project? So those projects on paper can be huge, but in the end, on the field, what is going on the field is a huge problem in this country. Yeah, so,
it's the same question, but why is our economic growth not being felt generally by people? There are too few people who are feeling
that's right.
the economy. So where is the growth going?
Right. Now, when we talk about economic growth, sometimes if you look at the macro level and then the micro level, where at the micro, we aggregate to form the macro. But sometimes the aggregation might not be contemporaneous. So the feeling might not be immediate, okay, if you look at theoretical eyes. So in the end, if it's showing that things are okay, but then sometimes the relationships are not direct. It takes some time, sometimes 3 years late, sometimes 2 years late, sometimes 5 years late. But then we've realized that, okay, fine, we've given ourselves more time. The growth, it has been consistent all this while, but then people are not feeling it, okay? We have a concentration of wealth in this part of the world where few people, now I can tell you that one person's wealth in a part can take, you know, a whole village as an economy and take care of the village. So that concentration of wealth is what is causing this problem.
The other major factor, and I've seen, you know, I've had a few numbers here and there, is how much is our energy situation now? What is the actual cost to us? Is anybody doing the numbers and, you know?
Well, for now,
are we complaining more than the situation, or the situation is equal to what we are complaining about?
Well, it matches exactly what we complain on. It matches exactly. Because this is a sector that is collapsing the SMEs. And look, the SMEs contribute about, I mean, if you look at our output, it contributes about more than 60% of our economic output. And if you look at this sector, you know, just collapsing as a result of this power outage, then the complaints are just direct. I mean, it's something that is being felt out there. And when you talk about power outages, the effect is instant. You know, if you are what you call a coastal operator, and in the end the power goes off for 3 days, you're already out of business. You end up burying all your fishes, and that is what the impact is. It's just straightforward. You know, it doesn't take much time to feel it. So whatever complaint is coming out there is something that is being felt by the people. So it matches exactly what is on the ground.
Well, we're going to take a break and come back, because in the last budget too, I mean, there was the TICO 3, TICO 2, Bone 1, Bone 2. I mean, all these numbers were thrown at us. What is it that they will say this time that you and I will say, as for this one, it's different from the other one, so we believe and we're going to buy into it? Don't move. Well, thank you very much for staying, and we are looking at what's going to happen tomorrow with regards to the budget. Last year there was a budget, then there was a review, and then again there was another review. And here we are today looking forward to tomorrow as to what's going to happen. But my question before we went to the break is, what is it that can be said in tomorrow's budget that will bring that confidence, that will make us buy into it? Okay, I think I've got Professor Quartey on the phone now from Institute of Statistical and Social and Economic Research from ISA. Professor Quartey, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Prof, we are looking ahead to tomorrow's budget. And my question before the break, probably unfair to you, but let me land it anyway. It's what is it that will be the finance minister can say tomorrow for us to say, as for this, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, let's buy it? Because every time and then they said, this is our budget, we missed it, that's our budget, we missed it, that's our budget, we missed it. So what can be said tomorrow for us to say, this is it, we're going for it?
Well, what is special about this year's budget is that we are going into election. It's an election, going to be an election year.
Yeah.
And so basically it's an election budget. Or most of our election budgets or spending has been spent overboard. We spend much more than we anticipate, and we have run huge budget deficits. In fact, in 20, it was close to about 12% of GDP. So this year, what we are expecting is something different from the political business cycle we have been experiencing. And in fact, we also seeing the IMF caution us and recommend that this year's budget should factor in some of this election expenditure so that we ensure that we stay within limits. So this year, for me, the anticipation will be an austere one, a budget that would ensure that we cut our coats according to our size. that we will not overspend, so that we use the rest of the year to clean the mess. So that is one major thing we want to see. And when that happens, it will bring a lot of confidence in Ghanaians and in the economic managers of this country.
Prof, let me come in here. I mean, this afternoon on Joy FM, you know, I was really jumping up and down because my roads in my area are really terrible. And I just thought, look, enough is enough. I went on and on until my DC actually came in to try and, you know, resolve the conflict on air. So, and I am kicking now because I know these guys are obsessed with their votes and they want to come and campaign. As a chief, I'm saying, well, if you don't give me roads, don't come and campaign. And I'm just one out of probably 100 who are going to use this technique. So what are they going to do?
Well, then I heard you with a banter with your DC, who thought you were very unfair with it to him. But let's say it this way. You see, if we are realistic, if we really want to develop, we have a plan. So you don't wait till election year when you come and make promises, when you come and fix roads, you come and fix the potholes like your DC said he's going to do. I would have expected that any serious-minded manager of any system or economy will plan from day one. If it's going to be gradual, I'm going to fix this, fix that. So by the end of the fourth year, what has to be done would have been done. But the challenge we face, we wait till the end, then we come and make promises, and sometimes if we don't do it, we don't get the votes. That is where the challenge is. But I'm hoping this time round, politicians will be bold and honest enough to tell the electorates that, look, yes, we'll do it, but we can't do everything now. We're going to face it, and we're going to stick to our words and deliver.
Let me come into studio and speak to your colleague, Dr. Dr. Lord Mensah. That's going to be exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, like Prof is saying, at the end, we should have a plan, you know, where at the end of the day, we follow the plan. So in the end, by fourth year time, you know whether the plan has been executed or not. Now, if you look at so-called well-developed countries, you know, how to judge a government is not about jumping on to make promises that you cannot fulfill. Now, government is, you know, countries are into business now. You know, you have to run the country as a business entity. You need a business plan. The business plan has a termination point. In our case, will be 4 years. You understand? So if you know that at the end of the 4 years, these are the things that are supposed to be in place. Now, it makes your campaign message simple. Now, they tell us that they spend too much money in campaigning. Why would that be? Because you are not able to, you don't have anything to convince the people apart from what? Giving them a substance at the time that you are campaigning. But if you have records that can point to the fact that this is what you've been doing, or you just go and stretch your arms, look at the roads, and that's it. You understand? So, for me, like Prof is saying, we need a plan. And the plan has to be adhered to. And as to how we can judge our politicians is how they keep to the plan.
Another thing, you mentioned something about SMEs who are struggling because of energy. SMEs, you say that are about 60%, you know, that's how much they are going to put in the pot. Because of energy, they are struggling. Now, we have a culture where, I mean, the longest anybody's going to give you money is probably 12 months.
Yeah, sure.
Now you're looking probably, you know, 25, 30%. How realistic is it to build any country based on these factors? One, I won't give you energy, and two, I won't give you money. If I give you money, it's too high.
That is a depressed situation. It is a depressed situation. You see, where we live in a country where the government actually is competing with the private sector in terms of funds. Now look at treasury bill rate. Now, if you look at the banks, as we speak now, they always declare profit. Have you asked yourself, how many deposits are they taking and how many loans are they giving? If you go there, the activities are just nothing to write about in relation to their investment into treasury bills. So it's a free chop money for them. You understand? So this will, you know, more or less crowd out the private sector. And, you know, the private, like I'm telling you, it's a depressed situation.
Let me bring Professor Korte in here. Prof, I mean, how serious is this? And if we really need to move forward, the interest rate, I mean, how urgent is it that we look at it to help the SMEs to get funds to grow?
Yeah, if you look at the interest rate you're paying, the cost, so that apart from the cost of funds, the default rate is also high, the risk, and many others are built into the interest rate. So to address this, I think it's for us to look at each of them. What is the high default rate? Now, if you live in a country where there are no systems, where credit referencing becomes difficult, people borrow and default at will, sometimes difficult to track them, then the few end up paying for the recalcitrant borrowers. So that is one aspect to which we can fix the interest rate problem. Then, of course, we have our own government competing with the private sector. Treasury bill rates of about 24%. Now, if you had money you want to lend to either a private man or to government is the preferred option because it's less risky. You'll get your money back.
Assurance is there.
So government is making it difficult to really get the interest rates down, and that is affecting private business. Your cost of credit is high, utility bills are high, cost of inputs are high. So it really puts the private sector out of competition, and that is seriously affecting employment within the country.
Professor Korte, thank you very much for that contribution, but I'm sure you at home too would want to chip in. It's 050-800-000. So 05-60-80 and then 000. Send your messages in, and I'll read them out. I'm sure I see Lord waving some messages at me. I'm sure as soon as I get them, I'll read it out to you. If it wasn't for a real political divide, we probably have come together and really faced this fight. Because this problem is not a Mahama problem.
It's not a political problem.
It is a Ghana problem.
It's a Ghana problem. It's a management problem. You know, it's a management problem. You see, we have to face fact, a situation where anytime you are elected as a minister, you are appointed as a minister, or you are elected as a president, for me, I would have loved to see a situation where you peel off your political colors and take decisions in business-wise. You know, look at the country as your own business, how you manage it and carry it forward. So where we find ourselves now, it's not a political problem.
But what's going to happen tomorrow is, right after the speech, everybody within the Dankwabuzia tradition will pick you up and say, this is as good as, nothing. And then everybody from the NDC will say, this is the best thing since sliced bread. And then we'll carry it on like that and let it pass. But then if I'm reading, like what I'm reading from last year, it tells you how everything has been missed. And it's really serious business, because this is what the country sits on.
Yeah, sure.
How are we going to devoid politics from economics from politics? It's not possible, is it?
Yeah, it's not possible. But then I always suggest that we should go by the line of, you see, if you take managers of a corporation, you know how their compensation packages are tied to their performance. You know, I think it's fast we revisit our constitution and approach it that way. See, we tie the performance of those in government
to the deficit,
to the GDP, to the inflation, and at a point in time you realize that your pay is your ex gratia is reducing. You will sit up. You understand? So I think if we are assuming a country where we want to model the country in business, it's about time we revisit our constitution and look at how we can tie this managers' compensation to our economic performance.
Dr. Moore, Dr. Mensah, where is our hope going to come from? I mean, devoid of all politics and everything, where will our hope come from to say, listen, countrymen, this is our only hope. Let's move a lot of our energies this direction?
Well, like if we look at the budget, which is the focus for this discussion, I will look at it this way. It should be a budget where it will say, hey, these are projects ongoing. This is what we've achieved. If we pump this amount of money this time, if we generate this and we pump into the project will come into completion. This is what we're going to realize, okay? It shouldn't be a budget that will create new project that the cost is going to be high. Whatever has been started, it has to be continued. That is how I see this budget, and that will create the hope. For me, my understanding will be the government is about to finish this project. In the next 1 or 2 years, we're going to have a realization, other than creating new projects that will be on paper and most of them don't materialize. And even if they materialize, it's going to be halfway. And then in the end, where do we head towards? So for me, the hope that we can get from this budget is that whatever, there should be new project, but then priorities should be set on there. But then whatever has been started in the previous budget, it has to come into completion.
Priority is a good word that you mentioned, but that's what I was leading to. How much of that is necessary within economics?
Yes, it is necessary because economics is about scarcity, where resources are scarce. So you allocate it, setting your priorities right, knowing that you are constrained, you are bounded. So in the end, efficient allocation is what you want to achieve, to satisfy the basic needs of the people. Now, at the end of the day, if you look at our allocation, this budget, for instance, how I see it, it shouldn't deviate from anything of replacement of our energy sector, making sure that the energy sector is effective. I'm looking at a budget where the focus will be basically on energy, where all the projects that has been started on energy, because energy is the basic infrastructure for every economy. So all the project that has been started on energy has to be completed. That's how I see it in this budget. Yeah.
As for energy, I think that's a whole new show the whole new show together, and we seem to be separating energy from our economy, but I don't think it is
part of the economy. It is part of the economy. If you look at energy you can dissociate energy from economic structures. You can dissociate energy from economic structures.
Let me get a few comments from what our viewers are saying. It says, expectation of the budget is not going to be much. We borrow to finance debt, and the little left is not put into ventures that yield returns to pay off the borrowing debt. Imports are way bigger than exports. We are not consuming what we produce, and the waste for foreign products must be checked. This one says, hi, Nana, I disagree with your panelists. We don't need to motivate people to go into politics. We must cut their expenditure. Good evening, Nana. A very difficult environment limits what people can do. But environmental determination is not an appropriate description. It could be overcome by technology where means and the finances are available. Businesses are collapsing, so our CD shredding. How then do we meet our target? This is William in Koforidua. I think it will be the same mouth budget, nothing new from Kweku Akomu Edumasa. Edumasa, we want our road, but budget or no budget, we want our road. But these are little sentiment from viewers. But let me go to the phone and get the views of Dr. Godfred Bokpain, also finance lecturer, University of Ghana, so your colleague. Dr. Bokpain, you're welcome.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, sir. You're welcome. Doctor, we are looking at, what to expect tomorrow in the budget, and we are getting, various views. So once you are on there, what do we expect tomorrow in our budget reading? Something special at the moment? Last year we missed all our targets, some due to our fault, some not. What do we expect tomorrow?
Certainly the Minister of Finance will get something to tell Ghanaians by way of revenue, by way of expenditure, by way of government economic programs. But I think that it will not be substantially different from what we have seen in the past, because we don't have the flexibility to do something drastic in terms of expenditure or in terms of revenue, because if you look at how much we have to set aside for debt servicing and how much we go for wages and salaries and gratuities and all of that, if you put the two together, you are looking at almost 70% of every CD revenue that we generate that goes to just these two line items. So the flexibility is very, very small. But I think we should rather put more emphasis on implementation. You see, the joy of a budget is not in the presentation, as it will be done tomorrow. It lies more with the implementation strategy that we put in place in order to translate this budgeted to actuals. This is where we have not been doing well. If we go to history and you look at the year 2000, because it was an election year, what we said we were going to do and what we ended up achieving, you could see a very big variance, which means that there are a lot of things that politicians or government tells us in an election year that they will do, that they end up not doing that. Okay, sometimes they go beyond that on the negative side. If you look at maybe budget deficits, okay, the year 2000, 2004, 2008, and then 2012. So this is the kind of history that we have to be able to deal with, because the political business cycle is becoming costly. We have not been able to come out of the 2012 election excesses or the budget overruns, and now we are going to another election. We also have to be mindful that we have a 3-year IMF program that is guiding our life for the next 3 years or so. Yeah. So if you look at the budget itself, there are projections, there are estimates in the budget.
Yeah, sure.
So in the program itself. So my understanding is that the 2016 budget will mirror to a large extent the projections in the IMF program as it relates to 2016 being an election year. So we're also looking at maybe the revenue side. To what extent can we expand the revenue envelope? There are limitations there, because in terms of world commodity prices, oil and the rest of them, they remain low, and we don't have control over them. If you also look within, industries are suffering. So to what extent can you squeeze the very little profit that is left? So government is constrained to some extent. So you are looking at maybe subventions. You are also looking at maybe rationalization to some extent in terms of the tax subsidies or waivers or all of that. But they all have their costs or disadvantages. So it's a kind of tricky balance that perhaps government will have to look at, because, and I do not expect that government will be able to present a much more business-friendly budget, given the fundamentals of the economy and the challenges that we are going through. Because we have challenges at the macro level that government is focusing on, for which reason we cannot start cutting the business community now. So there are some sacrifices that we have to make in order to restore macroeconomic stability. And I want to believe that we will be consistent to perhaps doing the right things, not only saying them, but doing the right things, so that we get to preserve the fundamentals of the economy even in an election year.
Dr. Woping, thank you very much for that contribution. I'm going to take a quick break, and then when I come back, we continue. I have lots of messages here to catch up, but business-friendly budget, we shouldn't expect. Exactly what we need. We have to expect that. Don't move, we're coming back. Very much for staying, and we are looking at tomorrow's budget, what's going to come out of it, and I was catching up with some of your messages. This one says the budget should factor graduate unemployment. Many unemployed graduates are not a burden, but rather a rich human resource reservoir to boost the economy. This is Pakwesi, you're sending it from Cape Coast. Tomorrow's budget is acrobatic budget. It won't yield any good fruit for us. This is from Nana Ifa in Tepa, in the Ashanti region. Reloaded Knighthood says, I suggest government should create more job opportunities for the youth. Koku Akpalu says, it's just going to be Tepanomics. I like that, Tepanomics. Ray says, tax on salaries should be reduced and salaries should be increased. Mohammed Astro says, job creation and public sector wages increment at least 20% is my expectation. I like your spirit. And then create jobs for the youth. This is Tenna, Enoch, Jack, and Doomsaw, and jobs. These are some of the sentiments coming. Okay, and okay, let me get a couple of messages more. This is Salih for One Heart says, we don't want blank promises. Kwame Karim says, protocols in education from basic to tertiary. Al Hassan Bukhari says, public wages should be increased by at least 18% to relieve the Ghanaian worker of these hardships. Bukhari Flex says, pragmatics plans should be made to crucify Doomso and never be allowed to resurrect. I like that. Crucified. Yeah. But the thing that Dr. Bakbin ended up with that we need a business, friendly budget, but we cannot have it. Yeah. So how would we grow?
Yeah, sure. I mean, like he's saying, budget has to be business. And if it's business friendly, how do you achieve it? We need input, and those inputs might not be materialized. We cannot realize those inputs. Where are we going to get the input from? Now, budget has to be generating revenues. And revenues, how are you going to generate them as we face our hardships now? Okay, you're going to, business you have to spend, and if you're spending, you need to finance the spending. And where are you going to generate the money? As you look at our external borrowing level, you look at our internal borrowing level, it's going to be difficult. That's why he's saying that we need a business-friendly budget.
So what do we do, Doc? I'm sorry, but
it is a difficult question. Yes, I think being a minister means I'll have enough information, to digest and then come up with a solution of that form. But as I sit here with the external information I have as an outsider, I would say that yes, for now our hands are tied. We do accept it. It's difficult, but then they should be moderate in terms of.
Let me quickly get
sticking to their spending.
John Kachi and take a take from him. We just want a really diverse view of what everybody's thinking. John Kachi, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Long time no see, my brother.
Yeah. Congratulations too.
Thank you very much. I have very little time left, which is unfair, but look, I need to get your view before the show ends. What should we expect tomorrow? There's a lot of dejection from all the messages coming from viewers. Nobody's expecting anything. I spoke to a few economists who said, look, we need a business-minded budget, but we can't get it. What should we expect tomorrow, and what should be done?
Well, I think tomorrow will basically be a consolidation of most of the items in 2015 budget, which actually were not fully implemented, but are core to solving some of the critical problems of the country, will have to be featured prominently in tomorrow's budget. We will also see a new focus to roll out the completion of plans to improve the energy sector significantly. I am also expecting a very clear statement in the budget dealing with expenditure for the forthcoming election as one of the ways of addressing a prudent fiscal measures for the election year.
How much hope does it give, the average Joe? Lights have been going on for the last 3-4 years, and we've had dates and dates and dates. I mean, what else can the minister come and say for us to say, as for this, it's different from what has been said previously. It's different from what, even the boat left and it hasn't left. We put him in a very difficult situation. Where does he go to bring our confidence back up?
Well, as I said already, I do not see tomorrow's budget to deviate significantly from what is being rolled out. You will realize that a lot of items in the 2015 budget were not implemented. Some of them have gone through feasibility stage. Some of them have just started. In fact, we just received about 1 billion euro bond. Definitely, the implementation of some of the key projects for those things will have to be defer into 2016. Those are the things we will be seeing in tomorrow's budget, and clear assurance of prudent expenditure management in 2000.
Thank you very much, John. That's all time will allow me. Thank you very much. 30 seconds. So basically, we just say, look, what we said we're not going to do this time, I swear to God, we shall do it.
Yes, I would say that the minister should come and present the realities on the ground as far as our economic facts are concerned. And then
the hard truth?
Yes, the hard truth. And then tell Ghanaians the prospect. And the prospects are going to be continuation of basically what my brother was saying, that what those aspects of the budget that were not able to be completed, we should try it and continue with it, so that we will not create any new expenditure that will come up with a blow where we're supposed to finance those expenditure. It will be a difficult thing. So I would say we should come up with the truth, and then we make sure that we go after.
There's always light at the end of the tunnel. Let's just look at the silver lining in the cloud. And tomorrow, let's all hope for the best. I mean, what can we do? We hope for the best, that something good will come out, somewhere that businesses would latch on and make this country a better place than well. Doctor, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much for watching. Right. And as I always say, tomorrow we'll be back to do this all over again. Thank you.